Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We're here to really celebrate Dignified Menstruation and to remind ourselves of all the unfinished business and the work to be done yet. And today's theme, the theme for this year is Dignified Menopause, and rightly so, because women really face these indignities and stigma from birth right to death. It follows them through the life course. So let's start with really the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the 2030 Agenda and the place of dignified menstruation in all this. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals really go beyond services and sectors. They're cross-cutting and built on the foundations of humanity, respect, and dignity. And women and girls in all their diversity as half of humanity really have a place centrally in this, given that they have been denied these very, very basic human rights for centuries. Beyond the cross-cutting, of course, dimensions of this, whereby whether it be health, education, livelihoods, a safe habitat, job opportunities, really resilience through climate change and conflict, it is also about goals 5 and 10. Gender equality, goal 5, and ending inequalities, goal 10. Because who can relate to these better than women and girls in all their diversity? Whatever the dimension and whatever the really sector, they have really faced the lack of opportunities and the inequalities inherent in that sector. But today we're talking about menstruation, a very basic biological phenomena that renews the human race itself, that is central to the biology of women in all their diversity, and yet for some and multiple inexplicable yet explicable reasons remain stigmatized and really a cause for indignity, shame, exclusion, isolation, and multiple denials of human rights. So in this 2030 agenda, it is clear that if we ignore these very basic denials of human rights, it is impossible to achieve the ambitious goals inherent in health, education, safe opportunities and livelihoods, and an economic, social, cultural, really world of safety and dignity and respect for all. Let's look at really the roles of global stakeholders, and there are many in achieving this. We have had many discussions on where this persecution, this stigma comes from and how it can be changed. But let me focus on two. In today's world, the home is key, but most importantly, the workplace has really an equal place and opportunity to change the status quo. As we speak today, we know that we have, today we're celebrating Dignified Menstruation Day, but we also have, we celebrate a menstruation day in May, we celebrate 11th November as the Day of the Girl Child, we celebrate 8th March as International Women's Day. These are all important to remind us of the hugely continuing and pervasive gender inequalities in this world. They have been socially and structurally created over the centuries. And therefore, on a positive note, let me remind us all that they're entirely changeable. We can eliminate these gender inequalities since we created them. These are not inequalities based on biology or sex. They're inequalities based on gender. How we interpret the reproductive roles assigned at birth and really transform them into a or what cannot be changed. These roles linked to women's reproductive and childbearing and nurturing roles have been translated into a domination of power, resources that in today's monetized economy, in turn deny women basic freedoms and opportunities even more sometimes than they did in the past. Not to have opportunities to earn money in a safe, supportive environment with equal opportunities, equal pay, equal education at the base of this all, equal skills in order to really earn livelihoods and be in control of one's livelihoods. Really relegates women and girls to a life of dependency. And with it, the stigma of just being women, not being able to take their place fully in this world, where if you don't have any economic power, it's really hard to really strike out on your own. So adolescent girls, by being denied the full benefits of a stigma and shame-free education when they're menstruating, translates into a denial of the basic confidence, safety, and wealth of opportunities that education is supposed to provide, including the possibility of a better future. Fast forward to the workplace. Menstruating women, trans women, whether in the formal or informal economy, whether in artisanal work, or whether in white-collar jobs, whether in the entertainment industry, whether really in the arts, crafts, labor-intensive industries, on construction sites, as bricklayers, or really as homemakers, are confronted with the continued silence in the workplace on this issue and the linked neglect of really it's really hard to comprehend the continued lack of safe, dignified facilities, comfort, dignity, education, menstrual supplies, water, sanitation, and hygiene, absolutely central to safe menstruation, and menstrual leave without having to lie about it if needed. Why are women still undergoing humiliation and even penalties for leave, for non-performance when they menstruate? Just because of the fact that they menstruate. This is not different from what they're tacitly made to balance as working mothers with reproductive roles beyond breastfeeding, beyond childbearing, whereby they really perform double duty for the rest of their lives with pervasive continuing barriers against fair conditions, remuneration, and advancement at work, where the myth, again created by managers and perpetuated by a male-driven work environment, is that women are unable to perform under high pressure or in situations, in positions of leadership because of their reproductive roles. Well, guess what? If everybody were to share these reproductive burdens equally, women would not have to go it alone. Parents are where a lot of this begins and ends, because let's not forget that parents, fathers and mothers, parenting together in all their diversity, are a product of societal perceptions, myths, and inequalities, and often reproduce the stigma and censure of the very societies they are a part of. They play a critical role in educating first boys and girls early, pre-puberty, on sexuality, the human body, safe menstruation, and dare we mention it, safe sex, because the human body is not just a reproductive vehicle. Without this, the taboos around sex and sexuality will continue to extend to women's bodies, especially in a continued climate in developing and developed countries where women are not really allowed to be explicit about sexual pleasure, but must really submit to their primary role, that of a carrier of babies, a reproductive vehicle. Any perception that these are not asexual vehicles only created to carry a baby is really, looked down upon, denied, and further stigmatized as not belonging in our society, whichever society you belong to, or in really corrupting social perceptions of virginity, sexuality, and reproductive health. So what is the relevance of 8 December, dignified menstruation, in the dignified menopause discourse? The fact that dignified menstruation, as with dignified menopause, is a right and not a privilege. It's a fundamental human right. Being able to menopause with dignity, safety, information, care, and support is a right as much as it is for menstruation. This is about a woman's life cycle of indignity, challenges, stigma, and denial. All these are experienced at puberty, where a girl child morphs into an adolescent girl who bleeds and is therefore suddenly shunned, relegated to silence, and managing her menstruation on her own reproduces itself, unfortunately, at menopause. After 4 decades of mastering the monthly rituals of covering up the act of menstruation, she suddenly can celebrate not having to do so anymore. But is she allowed to do this? No. Society is quick to discard this useless vehicle that has lost its childbearing utility. Younger women are much more interesting. Let's not focus so much on the lack of psychosocial support and medical support available to menopausal women, but let me focus heavily on our failure to celebrate this juncture in a woman's life and her continued sexuality and needs as a mature woman who is able finally to celebrate her grown children, young men and women who are embarking on their exciting life course as parents, as she takes on her role of a wiser, mature woman, being able to really support them fully, but also live her life to its really positive end. My final message is around the close links and the centrality of gender inequality in all this. This is not about sex and the so-called burdens that the female sex bring, but to celebrate the possibility of giving life itself, in addition to celebrating sexuality. If we can end the indignity and shame surrounding menstruation and menopause and the egregious inequalities that women and girls in all their diversity face throughout their life course. And let's not forget the pervasive feature, the pervasive really act of gender-based violence that continues, where 1 in 3 women face this at some point in their life. Figures from 2020 and 2021. At every step of the way from birth onwards, the girl child, adolescent girl, and young woman and older woman has to really look over her shoulder, you know, be reminded that she is physically the weaker sex. Let's not go to the mental aspects of this. We all know what the outcome of that analysis is. If we can really rid ourselves of this so that men and women, LGBTQI, in all their diversity, whatever your sexuality, whatever your orientation, whatever your gender identity, can walk strong, shoulder to shoulder, supporting each other on our choices, whatever they may be, and really honoring the reproductive role and partnering in this role. There will be no need to have a dignified menstruation day, a dignified menopause day, because this will be de facto what we all bow to and support as we walk tall into a future where every human being is respected. So I just want to celebrate this day as we look forward, you know, to all the discourse that this day brings, to remind us of the unfinished business, which we just have to finish by 2030. So saluting really the Society for Dignified Menstruation and all the wonderful work Radha and all the partners, including the government of Nepal and all our governments, have really worked together as duty bearers to discard shame and indignity, and in its place honor women and men as partners going forward. Thank you very much.